Welcome back to Draft Chat. I'm Trevor.
And I'm Josh.
And we are here for episode 2. We're going to talk here in a few moments with Tyler James. We've had him on before. Glad to have him back. Last time it was NBA themed. This will obviously be completely centered around draft and some of his thoughts. Before we bring him on, Josh, you looking forward to this episode? You looking forward to talking draft again?
No, I'm still in an NBA playoff mindset.
Yeah, it's tough
I
to
don't want
kind
to
of
act
break
like I'm
away.
not excited to talk about draft, but excited for the prospects. Hornets have 2 top 15 picks, so I have more reason to be invested. But yeah, still a playoff mindset right now.
It's all right. Once that lottery happens here in the next month, we'll be ready. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and roll right in. Welcome back to the show, Tyler James, NBA. How are you doing, my friend?
Good. Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll go over really quick the agenda, and then we'll give him, for those that are new, a couple of seconds, and then we do it at the end as well. For a shameless plug, we're going to go over today who his favorite prospect is. We'll also tell him who ours is. It's been a couple of minutes deep diving those guys. We'll play high or low again. Josh will try his best to describe the game better than I did, but it'll make sense, we promise. And then lastly, the Celtics have a second round pick in this year's draft. Tyler being the resident Celtics fan of this show coming on, he'll be able to give his thoughts on what the Celtics should do on draft night, as well as they're up to nothing on the Nets. We'll probably talk about that for a few minutes as we're recording this on Thursday, April 21st. So, without further ado, my friend, let people know where they can find you, who you are, what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I just heavy NBA coverage, some focus on the Celtics, but definitely all NBA. With a heavy focus on the NBA draft. Like I said before, I'm definitely in playoff mode as well, NBA playoff mode. So I've taken kind of a break off the draft a couple of weeks, but with that said, I've kept track of it all year, so it should be good to go. But I'm really into these playoffs right now, which I think have been the best so far in a while. But yeah, at Tyler James NBA on pretty much anything social. You can find me on all the social, CelticsStatsSocial.coms. There's some apparel and some other things, and I'm doing an all NBA site I'll be launching soon as well. So yeah,
Awesome, some exciting stuff coming around the corner.
for sure.
Let's go ahead and very swiftly let's talk about favorite prospect. Now we did, for the listeners, we did get told who it was ahead of time, just so we were prepared. Obviously, we'll be a little more reactionary based here when we play high or low in just a moment. But without further ado, who is your favorite prospect this year? And then obviously, let's roll into why.
Yeah, so at first I was gonna just go with an obvious one, somebody in the top five or one of the top tier prospects, like a Paulo or a Chet or a Jabari. But I kind of wanted to dive a little bit deeper in somebody I really like, who admittedly he wasn't on my radar until this Rising Stars game, which I loved how they incorporated G League guys in the Rising Star game because even though somebody like Jaden Hardy didn't really show up, this guy Dyson Daniels, I really liked what he did. He didn't make a huge impact. He's kind of a do-it-all player, two-way player, and I'll get into him a little bit more, but Dyson Daniels is my guy, I think.
Josh, I know we have been very adamant about pushing the G League conversation back as far as humanly possible. It was inevitable. It was due. I'm kind of glad he did this. So, any thoughts on Dyson Daniels before we keep going?
So it's hard for me. That was very high last year on Jalen Green, especially in Jonathan Kuminga coming in to the NBA draft. And just what I've seen from them this year, not that they've been bad, but I do not think they've necessarily been worth top 6 picks that they became in the NBA draft. And I know that that has no bearing on Dyson Daniels, but it's made me very hesitant about players coming through the G League Ignite program and how NBA ready they are.
Yeah, sure, and that's a fair point, and I think the comeback to that point would be I don't think he's going to go top 6. So it would be a little bit less of a risk. Obviously, Jalen Green went number 2 or 3? I can't remember now. Yeah, and that's a high risk pick, even though he had some flashes of being maybe a potential elite scorer in the NBA. But with that said, I definitely get what you guys are saying. There's no one that blows you away on the Ignite this year. Jaden Hardy was that top prospect early on, and he was like top 5 for a lot of people, and he just fell off. He didn't look very great. So the reason I like Dyson Daniels is because if he's in that 10 to 14 range, which I think when he starts working out for teams, he's going to get in that range, maybe higher. It's a less of a risk, although you're right. If you're spending a lottery pick, you want to be a little bit more sure.
Yeah, he's in that weird place right now where, and I'm not sick of the Josh Giddey comparisons yet.
Right.
I will be eventually. I'm not saying player comparisons, just the fact that it's a really good passing Australian who can't shoot, who ends up in the top six. Obviously, a very weird
Yeah.
comparison there. Um,
Yeah.
my two biggest concerns with him, and obviously this is not a knock. I'm going to go through positives and negatives, and we'll discuss them. But I love his comparisons from Kevin O'Connor, who does a really good job. Whether he's right or wrong in the last 15 years or so of doing these draft boards from the Ringer, he at least gets the shades of part right. I know a lot of people say
Yeah.
shades of and player comps. He currently has a Derek White, Kyle Anderson, and Evan Turner
It's so spot
comparison.
on.
I
Yeah.
really do like all three of those. The problem is all three of those are nowhere near top 50 players in the league at any given time. Maybe Evan Turner in those 2 or 3 years. But the other thing that concerns me is the 25% shooting on from three on 51 attempts. Obviously, that's not his bread and butter. He's a passer. He's a really good passer. But every single G League guy has shown some kind of major weakness. His glaringly is his shot making consistently. But at that point, like you said, if you take him from 10 to 14, you're not expecting him to come in and hit shots consistently. You're expecting him to develop and take his time. So, on the flip side, though, he's probably the best pure passer in this entire class, and that sounds insane, but he very well might be.
Yeah, not a very guard heavy class. Probably that could be part of it. Obviously,
That's
it's
true.
a kind of a big guy forward draft, and you're right. And when you guys told me to pick that guy, like honestly, I don't think he's going to be one of the top five in this draft. I just think he's going to be. I would consider him a sleeper right now, even though he's getting that 10 to 14 range potential in a lot of mock drafts. I still consider him kind of a sleeper.
That's the thing that I'm struggling with, and I haven't done a deep dive of a lot of guys outside of the top maybe 10 or 15 yet, and that's my next project here in the next month or so. Is I really want to know why he's kind of just been the one G League guy to just completely propel himself. Like maybe it's the workouts that I'm not seeing. Maybe it's communication with the scouts. Maybe it's something that people were just taking more deep dives on. The scouts were and some of the personnel, and they're seeing it. But I'm trying to figure it out at least on a deeper level. I mean, then again, though, you like you mentioned, he may not end up being. He's a sleeper guy that could be end up really good. That's what Giddy was last year. That's why I'm not sick of that comparison yet because it really could be right. We could see this again, but Giddy was so much more talented. I think that's what the difference for me was. Giddy was so talented across the board. So I don't know. I'm like I need like a really good elevator pitch from somebody on Daniels. I need it from any of them, and I have Hardy to be clear with people. My big board, I have Hardy at 12 still, and
Oof, yeah.
he's probably going to stay at 12 to 18 for me. Um, I mean, pre-tournament, I had him at 12, and after all these changes, a lot of guys are coming down. He may be of the benefit, and him and Daniels both might end up in that 10 to 14 range for me right now, as I am really high on Jaden Hardy. So,
Oh, you are? Okay. Well, I mean, he's definitely got the scoring potential, and that's what he's kind of known for, and that's never going to be something an NBA team doesn't need. I guess the easiest thing on Daniels, and this is kind of an intangible, I just think he kind of plays like a winner. I know I didn't see him much in the Rising Stars game, but I could tell the coaches were kind of gravitating towards him, and there was a couple. I don't know if it was Barry. I know Barry was his coach in the Rising Star, but I don't know if it was Barry or another coach that came up to him after the game, and you could tell was just really like saying, "Hey, you really did well." And he was one of the more noticeable players in the Rising Stars game, and his team won the championship. So I just think in the NBA, if I'm not going to look for pure talent, I like guys who show potential to work hard and improve their game. And I think he's going to improve that shot. He did shoot from the NBA 3-point line. I know that's not a huge difference, but hopefully that can be taken into consideration a little bit. And from what I've seen, the shooting stroke doesn't look very bad. It doesn't look, it's broken. It doesn't look like somebody who couldn't put in that work and maybe improve. And he's going to play. And as you know, to bring the Celtics in this a little bit, the way they're playing defense right now, trust me, I hated drafting guys that couldn't shoot. When Danny Ainge thought about Josh Jackson a couple years ago, I said, please, 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 please don't do that. Like, I'm so glad he didn't work out for us because I thought he was going to go for that pick. And even Jalen Brown, I was hesitant a little bit out because he didn't shoot either, but obviously he changed his game. I just think defense is starting to really show up in the NBA, and maybe it's just the Celtics and the way they're defending Durant right now, but I think he can play 1 through 3 as far as defending the ball. Maybe the 4 because he's 6'6", and he's just going to be a decent two-way player and a playmaker and a really solid. I don't think he's going to be a role player. I think he's going to be above that. But I see him as somebody who can work and get better at that shooting and at things he's not as good at.
I mean, I agree. It sounds like there is a lot of upside for Daniels. I think that probably the teams that should look at him, in my opinion, the most, maybe a little bit outside that lottery, or somebody who has a little bit of patience and time to work on a guy that also needs a guard in that role. So I think it's going to be a very team specific spot.
Yeah, I agree. And somebody like a couple mocks I see late at like 13 Houston, pair him with Jalen Green and just get another guard that can get him the ball, or just somebody who he can get the ball to. And I know you guys said go over some strengths and weaknesses, and I did mostly strengths so far. Weaknesses is definitely the shot. I think that's the main one, but a couple other things, I don't think he's very explosive. That kind of, you don't have to be in the NBA. I mean, it's a nice little bonus, but if you're smart and know how to play, you can overcome that. But I don't think he's very explosive, and sometimes he's a little too unselfish. I like to see him put the ball in the hoop a little bit more and take his shot a little bit. But those are probably the two negatives I have besides the shooting, which is probably the glaring weakness.
So the only thing I want to touch on for a second that I think is important to note is I don't necessarily think he needs that developmental team that needs to take care of him and take his time. I'm not sure I think that matters for him. The reason I say that is because I do want to have this conversation between the three of us, because how many teams are there like that? Because I have to give credit to the No Ceilings guys on Twitter. Shout out to No Ceilings. They had this conversation on their podcast the other day about, and they went through all 30 teams. How many GMs right now with a comfortable position can say, I'm taking a project guy in the 14 area, like the 10 to 14, and be like, I'm okay with my job and I know I'm not going to lose it? There's probably 5.
Yeah.
Presti being one of them, and Houston being another, and then
Well,
a handful. And I don't
I
think
don't
he needs
mean,
that.
yeah, I'm actually was meaning something else. I didn't mean like your like teams that are not trying to win now that have time to take on guys. I meant like a team that already has an established guard that isn't looking for too much out of Dyson Daniels right away. And maybe you're
Do you have
right,
an
and there aren't a
example?
lot of teams like that that would take him. But I'm thinking of like a team that isn't like drafting him because we need you to go do this right now.
What's a good example in the late lottery? Would that be like in Atlanta? I mean, Atlanta's
Yeah,
getting to be in the
Atlanta wouldn't be
16 to
bad. I
18.
mean, they're going to be
They like
after the
Sharif Cooper a
lottery.
lot, but I know, and that's the issue with Dyson is I think he's
Atlanta's going
gone
to
by
be post
14.
lottery. Cleveland, maybe, who's
Cleveland's a good
pretty
one.
set with Darius Garland, could take some time to develop a Dyson Daniels.
I think Washington's a good idea too. And they don't have a guard that they can develop right now, at least point guard.
Yeah,
They don't at all. They don't have a point guard that I care for
there's
whatsoever.
there's a few too many question marks for me right now with Washington to try to think about where they're going to go. But
Yeah, they're going to be a fun conversation in the next 20 something days when the lottery happens. Once we see where they are and cement them, there are going to be a lot of really big, good conversations around the draft.
I think so, and maybe the Nets might be a good conversation too. I mean, are they gonna keep Kyrie and KD together if it all goes south and they get swept or a 5-game? Like, I don't know if that really affects their draft stock very well, but they're probably gonna get a mid to late pick. But
Yeah, that's why
I'd
they
be
took.
interested.
That's why they took Cam Thomas last year. They
Yeah,
thought he could come
exactly.
in immediately and play, and they're willing to take time. And now that he's not playing in the playoffs, they let him play in the regular season when they need him to win games. And he's kind of a good example of you can play him at game 30 through 60, but once push comes to shove, you're playing like we saw with that series. We'll talk about at the end here. We saw they're going to play 6, 7 guys. I think that's a good example. I'm probably forgetting one. I mean, I think Cleveland's a good one, even though they're set with Garland. I think Washington's the weird one there. Anything else on Daniels from either of you guys? I know he's very intriguing. The G League as a whole, he's kind of like the only guy right now. I see this weird scenario where Hardy has a really good workout with some teams, and he maybe goes in that 12, 14 still because of the potential. But I think Dyson's the safe bet too. If you had to pick one of the G League guys to go in the lottery, because of just the consensus, he's probably going to be the guy. So, any other thoughts on him?
I think Dyson's gonna. And this is something a lot of people don't talk about much, but I think Dyson Daniels is gonna blow it away with blow people away with his interview skills. I think he's gonna earn a lot of fans that way. I just think I don't know him that well, but I think he has got a good head and shoulders and seems like he has some basketball IQ. Yeah,
he
so
is
I honestly think that he's going to blow some people away, and a couple teams are going to fall in love with him. Like you said, like with Giddey, no way he's going to go 6. Well, I'm not going to say that. I mean, it all depends. That shooting's definitely going to kill him a little bit, but I think he's going to definitely blow some people away with that interview process and the workouts.
All right, Josh. Anything else, or do you want to go ahead and let us be the first one to reveal your favorite player to Tyler?
There's not a lot to talk about with who my favorite player is. I'm very generic.
Get it out of the way.
I love Chet Holmgren, and I'm gonna love Chet Holmgren as a prospect. I'm not gonna. I mean, I wish I was more interesting, like with what Tyler brought, but
That's great.
I'm not.
I'm interested to hear the Chet, so you're locked in at number one for him?
Yeah, if I'm one of the teams taking it one, my kind of philosophy with them is you take the best talent you can get your hands on at one. And I think with Holmgren, I mean, you've got a 7'1" shot blocker, catches lobs, shoots threes better than a lot of the guys in college did last year. He's the best 3-point shooter Gonzaga had, which is outrageous. He can handle the ball like he's a small forward. And everyone's concerned about his size. I think get to with a professional team's nutritionist and weight training program, I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, does he have that build? KD doesn't want to put on weight because he's a shooter, but does Holmgren have that build to where he can add that weight?
I mean, I think he's got that Zach Collins build that came out of Gonzaga that shot him so high up the draft board.
Yeah,
he's now obviously that's where I'm stopping the Zach Collins comparisons because he's way more talented than Zach Collins ever was. But I think Zach Collins got himself to a pretty good size.
I love how you just built up Zach Collins and then tore him down in the same sentence. I just think that's hilarious. That's
Zach Collins isn't shooting threes and dribbling from the outside.
Yeah, no.
Cutting in the paint.
His playmaking ability is 3,000 times less what Holmgren's potential is. Any other thoughts, I guess, Tyler, on Holmgren? I know obviously he's kind of the most intriguing of the three, probably, but anything that you love or don't like about him before we go over my favorite player and then we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I love obviously the size and I love the defense. And I think obviously he's not like Mobley, but I think Mobley will help his stock a little bit. That tall, skinny guy who can really defend the ball. Mobley's a little bit better of a post player. Holmgren's a better shooter, in my opinion. So I think that'll help his stock because Mobley, two teams passed on him last year. And I bet those two, even though Cade, was looking great. That draft class was just loaded. I think a lot of people, if it was Remock, Mobley would maybe get that number one spot, maybe number two. A lot of Kevin Garnett shades to him, but yeah, I think that'll help his stock a little bit. It's tough. I think those top three, Mobley, Paolo, and Jabari. I actually think it's one of those years where it might be not best player available, but a little bit more of a team need. So if like Orlando gets the pick. Maybe if Houston gets the pick, it's going to depend who gets that top pick. And for once, they may go for a little bit team need because that's a couple teams that have certain areas already. So it'll be interesting to see.
Can you imagine a Şengün and Chet Holmgren front court? Oh man,
see it.
I'll touch that. I'll touch on that. I'll keep stirring on that thought for a while. I've had that thought for a minute. I'll hold that for a couple more episodes from now. But so Tyler, I'm gonna preface this before I say anything else. Okay. Josh knows what I'm about to say already, so that's why I'm prefacing this to you. Every year, I've been doing draft comps for the last 5 years, and every year I have one guy where I go, no matter what happens to him, until he Anthony Bennett's his way out of the league, I will like him come kingdom come, right? My guy this year is drawing comparisons for me, and I'm pulling up my board to make sure I have all the stuff right. His floor is Robert Williams, and his ceiling is Kevin Garnett.
Ooh.
So, to be clear, he is not going to the Celtics at 54. Get that out of the way. This guy will not fall past. If it's up to me, if I'm a GM of one of the top 14 teams,
he's not falling past 13.
He's not falling past 13. Yeah, he'll more than likely be a Charlotte Hornet. But my guy is Mark Williams. I think Mark Williams has the biggest potential to be a generational shot blocker and defender. And I'm completely bullish on that. Like the fact that his floor is Robert Williams, I would have said that before this year, obviously, and he ended up finishing in the top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year, which is insane. He had a great year. But I think his floor could actually be even higher, and that's not a knock on Robert Williams. That's just a really big gap between Robert Williams and Kevin Garnett. It's a huge gap. I had to create a floor and a ceiling gap. I had to make it.
I was gonna say I like it, but
I can't really start with a floor of Garnett. There's really no way to go up from there. So I had to be like, cool, floor is Robert Williams. But Mark Williams, I think, is the best. I think he's the best pure defender and shot blocker in this, from the big perspective in this draft, and I will die on that hill. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, interesting. Obviously, I like the Celtics comparisons and Robert Williams. I always wonder if players that have good seasons help the next year's draft class. Like obviously, Rob Williams. You know what I mean? He was top candidate for one of the top candidates for Defensive Player of the Year. Marcus Smart won, and before he got hurt. And then the year Bam Adebayo had that run with the bubble. We saw Okongwu, Jaden Ivey, because John Morant's so amazing. Even though I don't there's a lot of differences between those two. Jaden Ivey's the top guard by far, and some people even have him in the top two right now. So I wonder if that Rob Williams comparison is helping Mark Williams a little bit. Obviously, the run to the Final Four didn't hurt. He was on a team where there's a lot of Duke players. There's, like always, there's 5 guys that's probably going to the NBA. So he's a little hidden, but he did his job. And I hate Duke, so I'm not going to really agree with you that much, but I don't disagree, I guess.
He's good, man. All right, let's.
I feel conflicted about it because, I mean, I think he's pretty good. It's just that, like, after you said it, with the most likely becoming a Hornet and looking at the board where there aren't a lot of big men kind of around that area, it just feels like Charlotte picking at probably 13 and 15. One of those is probably Mark Williams.
The thing that I'm having anger issues with, and I'll just say it like that because that's what it is there are a lot of people, even after the tournament, that have Walker Kessler above Mark Williams, and I just think they need to open their eyes. Like, Mark Williams is the second best big in this draft.
Yeah.
Second best. I think Jalen Duren still has that much of he'll be drafted a high. I can't be that guy that puts I'm keeping Chet as the exception to the rule, because when I say
I was going to say, you're not calling him a big, right?
I am, but you know what I mean. I'm excluding him from this conversation because it's Duren in terms of true quote center. It's Duren for me and Williams, and I can't be the guy that put Duren at 5, put Williams at 5 over Duren. Like, that would be naive. Even though I do think Mark Williams can do that level of play, it's just tough. So,
I guess just to end one point on this, like, where do you value a guy like, so let's say Williams is Robert Williams, like, and where would Robert Williams be drafted if you knew that's who you're getting right now? Like, where would he be drafted in this draft? The center, what he does, the intangibles he brings, he's never going to be a shooter. He barely isn't more than a couple of feet from the basket, but the lob threat, the defense, the anchor he is. So it's what the team values. I mean, obviously, when you're top 5, top 6, top 7 pick, you want that star power. But in today's NBA, I think that defense is getting valued a little bit more. So I'm just curious, like, if we knew for a fact Mark Williams would be Rob Williams or better, where would he go?
I get what you're saying.
Take him as high as 8.
That's what I was going to say too. 8 is where I have
so that's
him.
Fair, I think because he's not going to be your probably top 2 player on your team, but he's going to be a great third one. Well,
it's like that 1 through 7. Everyone is swinging for the fences. We need
exactly.
After that, you can kind of pick, like, I need this piece to be fantastic and the best at what he does.
So I'm going to zig a little bit since I'm going to zag instead of zig for a second. What I mean by that is we all agree that 8's a good number for him, because I think, and you worded it right with the defender piece, but I think people need to understand that if you're outside of the top 8, like, your teams are even in the top 8, you're not just looking for a star. Like, there's only truly 2 or 3 stars a draft. You can look at the Hall of Fame, numbers per draft, and I got to find the article from Basketball Reference. It's really, really good. It shows you the percentage of Hall of Famers per 10 years for a draft, and essentially you're looking for what I would call a contributor, right? That guy that isn't a star, but from like 6 this year to like 15, you're going to have a lot of guys where you're like, Keegan Murray's not going to be a star, but he's going to be a really good contributor. Mark Williams is not going to be a star, but he is going to be a really good contributor. I think contributor is a really important word, because I think a lot of people are like, I'm looking for this specific thing. Well, there's a lot of guys that can do a lot of really good things this year outside of the top 6. And I think that's where you have to really think when a guy like Mark Williams. I can actually answer that question better in about a month when we know the draft lottery. Because if a mid-tier playoff team or play-in team, like the Hornets, obviously having 13 and 15, or say there's a team in front of the Hornets at like 8 or 9, they could definitely draft Mark Williams at 8 or 9, and I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And like a guy like Oscar Schube, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but one of the best rebounders in the draft, probably the best rebounder. Like, where do you pick him? Just do you go for that skill set of rebounding?
Well,
so
you don't. He actually
you don't now.
Go back. Yeah,
he's going
to Kentucky.
So he's still on this draft board, and I heard that. That was a curious pick for me, but yeah, I definitely agree. It's going to be a little bit of team needs around that pick, but if you're getting somebody like Rob Williams, I think you take it. Take that chance.
To be clear, Robert Williams, I think, was like the 15th pick in this draft.
I think 14th.
People saw the potential, 14 or 15 somewhere.
And he's only 6'9", so I mean, I think it's Mark Walker Williams 7-footer, right? So
6'11" and a half, I think. Yep.
Yeah. So he's got a little bit more size to him.
All right, Josh. Luckily for this, because we went a lot longer on favorite players than I thought we would. But high or low is a rapid fire game, so this is a reactionary game. Josh is going to explain it a little better than I did last week. But we're going to give you 8 players, and you just need to let us know whether you're high or low on them. Josh, explain it, please, better than I did.
Yeah, that's basically it. This is a very eclectic group of players. Some are first round talents, some are second round talents, some may be talents you haven't heard of. Hopefully not, but we're just
30
kind of going to
seconds.
get like a rapid fire reaction where you are on these guys and just going high or low and maybe a couple words to explain what you think.
Makes
Sounds
sense.
good.
All
Oh,
right.
yeah,
All right.
I just got to correct something. I was thinking 14 range for the Celtics. That was Naismith and Langford. Williams was actually 27. I
Wow.
totally
Really?
had a brain fart.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
We all thought he was 15. That's weird.
yeah, it's because
We
the
all just
Celtics
had
were in
this
that range
weird.
the Celtics were in that range for like 3 straight years. So
That's true.
that's probably why. But go ahead.
All right, let's roll.
All right. So we'll start Johnny Davis.
I'm going Johnny Davis low.
I think that's
I'd
where a lot of people are ending up.
Yeah, I'd rather have a better shot for him. A 6'5", back to the basket guy. Or not really back to the basket, but you know what I mean.
A guy that
That's a
doesn't
good
really
answer,
do
yeah.
anything, but no, it's a great point. A guy that doesn't really do anything other than shoot. So it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to take that guy at 6, like you're talking about when you get that star player.
Ty Washington.
Uh,
Doesn't matter.
high
They all mean
up.
the same thing.
High up. I like him. I think not a great shot. Develop a mid-range game. Doesn't get to the basket clearly really enough, but he had that 17-19 assist game. And when in doubt, draft Kentucky, if you ask me. So
When in doubt, draft. I've
I'm
never heard
also
it worded
high
like
just
that.
because like I'm always gonna look at a guy who's pass first and is very good at it. I'm gonna
yes, yep, and
lean that
he's coming from
direction.
Kentucky.
Josh, to be right, we both had him in our top. Yeah, you had him at 8. Wow.
I can see
know
Knicks.
a lot of people. Yep.
I can see Knicks.
That's what
Somebody
everyone
maybe that
keeps
Knicks
saying.
range.
Pre tournament, Josh and I had him at 6. Josh had him at 8, so we weren't far off on him. I think we're more consensusly higher on him. I think the tournament, a lot of people just really went like super out on him,
Mhm.
or down, or whatever word you want to say. He's just so versatile. Like I just can't not think that he's going to go in the top 14, but he's probably going to be one of the biggest falls this year in terms of teams that are going to pass on him.
Yeah, I think he will. And just to catch on that, when in doubt, draft Kentucky, or when in doubt, or never bet on Kentucky in the tournament. That's complete opposite things for me.
Yeah.
So
That's fair.
I blame Coach Calipari, not him. So
Oh, okay. There we go. Paolo Banchero.
high up. He's been up there for my number one pick for me. If gun to my head tonight, if I had to make a pick, it'd be him or Chet. I think with Jabari looking pretty close to that, but I'm pretty high on Apollo. I think he has elite scoring ability. He's got that NBA body, and I see a lot of potential in him.
Josh, I just have to do this. My floor for him is Juwan Howard. I just want to be completely on record.
I've heard that.
It's
Like
very
good
low.
Juwan Howard. Okay,
But
not
it's
not
like-
like really good Juwan Howard. Like
No,
most
I'm talking
great Juwan
like year 14 in Miami, Juwan Howard. I think he can be really
Howard.
bad. However,
Okay.
I do think he can be very good too. Like I think he's really sold himself to me this year, and it's just been one of those. I'm glad. I know you were one of the guys I talked to a few months back about him, and I was like, I just need to see enough this year that's going to make me really. My top 3 is going to change about 17 times between now and June 23rd. So, but yeah, right now I have him at 3, and it's close. It's so close. It's unbelievable.
I'm back high on Paolo again. I was worried about him at the end of the regular season, but the NCAA tournament kind of shifted me back on him because he really had an incredible tournament.
Yeah, I think he shows that potential of just taking over, and he can score when they need him to. Duke had a lot of options, and I don't even know if they fully used him to his best potential. So we'll see.
Josh, this next guy is going to be on every single high-low for the rest of Draft Chat until the tournament or until the draft lottery and draft concludes. So go right ahead with this next one that I'm super excited to hear about.
Keegan Murray.
Ooh, that's a tough one for me. I didn't think he had that great of a. Obviously, the last couple. Well, I mean, was he hurt a little bit in the tournament? If I remember correctly, the last game I can't remember. But okay, yeah. So
I don't know.
I'm if I have to pick, I'm in the middle with him, but I'm gonna go low. He doesn't blow me away as much as he blows away other people. He had a great season though, so it's kind of that's a tough one for me.
It is tough. That's why we're asking every single person that comes on this show.
Yeah, with me, it's like everyone that I hear from talks about how great Keegan Murray is, at least in the analysis that I read. But yet, like I watch him play, and I'm like, I just don't see it.
Yeah, like. Is he going to be that
the
Scotty
NBA
Barnes kind of player, like where
Yeah.
somebody's going to fall in love with him? I don't know. I don't see it either.
I think he's another victim of the fall. I think Portland's a really good landing spot, but I also think he also could be the. I think I made this comparison last week, Josh. The Adam Morrison, where he's just a really good college player that we all get really excited about, and then he just doesn't turn out to be anything.
I mean,
Like
Morrison got hurt, like tore like 2
That's true.
ACLs in his first 3 years, but
but I'm just using him as the example of like a really good college guy, and Keegan Murray was a really good college guy. So
Yeah.
good. I'm glad you, I guess, ended up right in the same place that we both did.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and that's a tough one because I thought we were going to talk about him too, and it's like, where do I land? But if I have to pick, I got to go low.
another Duke guy, AJ Griffin.
That's, you see, I'm going high because I think he's trending up, and
Okay.
I see a lot of. I mean, these comparisons can get really lazy, but I do see that Jimmy Butler body, like, you know, and he developed a better shot than Jimmy Butler had in college, obviously. So I think he looked pretty good, and he's freakishly athletic for a huge NBA size. So I see a lot of Jimmy Butler in him with a little bit of an improved shot.
I'm definitely lower on him now after watching him get locked down by Leaky Black over and over again, but that's just.
I mean, Leaky's a decent defender, but yes,
but it's like, I guess my thought, and I love Leaky, and I'd love the answer to be yes, but is Leaky Black an NBA defender?
I don't think he's going to be able to be an NBA defender because he's just not going to be able to do anything on offense. I don't think he's going to be able to win that roster spot. I bet he's going to be like a summer league guy, though. Maybe I can see him on a summer league roster.
Yeah.
And, you know, but can he defend in the NBA, or is he going to be an NBA defender? It's two different things. I think he could, but I don't think he's going to be because I just don't think he offers enough other things.
He reminds me of Tony Allen, like a lot. Like, wait,
Tony developed that, got to the hoop and was a decent dunker and things like that. Like Leaky he hit some threes.
Leaky's an Andre Roberson that you're using.
There you go. That's another good one. Yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah.
All right, Josh, can I ask this next one?
Yep.
Caleb Love.
Well, we can still ask the question.
I'm not gonna say low on Caleb Love. I mean, come on now. That run they just made, that's where you jack up your draft stock, and that's exactly what he did. Whether I don't know what he decided. Has he decided yet?
Yeah.
Undecided, yeah. So, and I got to keep an eye on that. But I hope he comes back. I just don't see how you do when you have that good of a run, and your stock might be as high as possible. That's what I love about the Tar Heels players, though. A lot of them are multi-year players. But I'm high on Caleb Love. I thought he showed a lot of getting to the basket as well, and showed a lot of composure.
All right, I'm going to ask you both this, and Josh doesn't know I'm about to ask this. This is actually completely off the rip. Right now, the term first-round talent gets thrown around a lot, and I think Caleb Love can be, and had the hype to be, and could be, however word you want to put it. But right now, knowing what we know now prior to any workout, is he a first-round talent?
His ceiling is.
No, is he, like, if the draft is today?
I say no.
Drafted?
That's he's fringe. He's like right out the end.
He's right there.
He's so close, and I think
if the draft is today, I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess not, but I would not be surprised. I mean, and obviously his workouts are going to determine everything. But man, I'll go. Yeah, I'll give him. Who would be 30 right now? Who'd be the 30th pick? I don't even know. I'll give him the 30th pick or 30th.
Or unless I traded.
I mean, that wouldn't be a great fit, but yeah, So I'll go. Yeah, I'll go end of first round.
Gosh knows.
So let me say this: if he enters the draft end of first round, I think he'll have a little hint of where he's going to go, and that means that's a yes.
Yeah, somebody will make a open-ended promise and
possibly,
that weird number. Yeah, look, y'all know I try to bring it with the questions, and that one I came up with about an hour.
It's a good one. I'm a homer.
I said, does he? Because I know a lot of guys do think he is that first-round talent, and he can be. But I think we need more.
He can be.
I think he's also going to be. He's going to really benefit from the workouts. He really is.
I think I just think he has a lot of development to go. Like he developed so much in the last month of the season.
Yeah.
That he just had. And I think there's a lot of. I think another year at Carolina would be beneficial. But.
That's what I'm rooting for.
Next year's draft is not very deep, at least yet. We don't think very top heavy, and I think it's extremely top heavy. And I think he'd be a benefit of like a 7th pick next year. Legitimately, like he has a great year at Carolina. The way the draft looks next year so far, I think he's crazy. I'd be crazy to think he wouldn't be a lottery pick. All right, on the theme of semi-small guards, Kennedy Chandler, often compared to Ty Washington in terms of this tier of point guard in the draft.
Sure, yeah. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because this is definitely not a point guard heavy draft in my opinion. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt of, impressing some teams. So I'll go high on him. He's another one that he's kind of like Keegan for me. Like he's I'm not sure exactly where I land. I think he's around 15 to 20, to be honest with you, but I wouldn't go any higher than that.
Yeah, that would actually technically be higher than most, at least from. And I look at probably 15 to
19,
30.
that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's not look, and that's still higher. I think most people have him in the 20 to 25 range, which is why I'm glad you really thought that through. Because like that would be for me, that would be considered high. Even if people listen to this and think we didn't sound very convinced, he might be the second best point guard in this class.
Exactly.
And
in this class, yeah.
he might go at 25, which is just stupid to say that.
That helps Caleb Love too. Getting back to him, like that could help his point guards. You know,
it's a good point.
Yeah,
it does. Point. All right, Josh, rip off the Band-Aid on the last one. This is the one I'm intrigued about.
Ousmane Dieng.
For those that might not know, plays in Australia. For some of the people that might not know that,
he plays in New Zealand.
New Zealand. Oh, sorry. See, I even got it wrong. Isn't that great?
Yeah, I'm gonna just be extremely upfront and honest here. I don't know enough about him to say hi, so I'll go right in the middle again or low. But he's not somebody that I've seen much. But I'm kind of curious to hear what you guys have to say about him.
So Josh, I'm glad we did this guy because I actually did a small deep dive yesterday. So I'll at least give my upfront what I saw. Boy, is his body like we talking about Chet's body not being ready for the NBA possibly. This guy might be the most un-NBA ready body. Now, I caveat that by saying he played in France when he was 17 to now playing in the NBL, which is probably the second or third most physically demanding league in all of basketball in the world, and it sounds crazy to think. But he averaged the same amount of stats as Theo Maledon did, and Theo Maledon's frame and body is also very small for his size and guard position. So I think Jang can be good. I think it's going to be a perfect project team. Like if the Thunder, who have 2 first-round picks, they take their top guy in the top 3 or 4, they could take him at 29 and probably be very happy with that and take the next 4 years to develop him. That's my thoughts.
And I know I will say one thing. I do love point forwards. I'm always a fan of a point forward, and I think that's what he is. So I mean, I'm on board for that at least.
He's a 6'10" point forward.
Yeah, exactly. I'm big in anything. Anybody who can do that. So that'll help a little bit. But he is very skinny. I do remember a picture of him now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah,
I'm very high on him, especially because I don't get lost in the stats the way that you might, Trevor, because it's just with leagues like the NBL, it's guys that like young guys don't get played in these leagues. They sit on the end of the bench. It's the veterans that play. So any stats that they're logging at all is good. I think RJ Hampton came out of that league averaging 5 minutes and 2 points per game. It was just like guys aren't logging time. LaMelo Ball is the only one who averaged 19 points per game in that league, and that was a sign for everyone.
Well, by the way, the same RJ Hampton who I had him at like 7 in that draft. So, oops, you miss sometimes.
Yeah, I wanted to Celtics like Hampton a little bit after a couple people, like just because we had a later pick. But yeah, that's definitely a miss on all of us.
I had him at 7. That's really bad.
I had him in the 20s.
There you go.
All right, I do want to ask this because I'm curious. You were high on a lot of these guys. Is there anybody you're super low on that the consensus might be high on?
Yeah, not super high on Hardy, but I want to see him a little bit more, and I do like his scoring ability. If I had to pick one guy if I had to like say one guy that a lot of people are high on and I'm not, it's probably Duren. I think he's definitely the body for his age, and I think he should be in high school right now. Technically, is insane. I just I don't want to compare him to Wiseman, and I know it's early for Wiseman, but big guys I know can be very hit or miss on that top. I just wouldn't spend a top 5 pick on him. That's it. In the 6 to 10 range, I'd consider it, but the people that have him in the top 5, I just don't agree with it, and I'm not as high on him because of that.
You care to guess where Josh and I have him?
Top 5. You have him at 5.
5, and Josh had him at 6.
Okay,
it may have
changed. I have him at 6.
Yeah, at least right now.
I don't have AJ Griffin at 5 anymore. So
yeah, that's fair.
Well,
so
it's changing. I will say the NBA is changing to where like we were going against the big guy, the center. They weren't as valued, and that's definitely changing. So I still kind of had that mindset of where it used to be, and I'm slowly getting in the other mindset. So the NBA is changing, so that will help them a little bit. But I'm still kind of at that, like a couple of years ago, to where drafting a big guy so high and then having him be a bust is just so common.
My issue with him, before we move on to the Celtics, is his floor is so low, but his ceiling is so high. There's just way too big of a gap for me, and that's where I get nervous. If his floor, and I put his floor at Emeka Okafor, and I'm probably going to change that because I think it could actually be lower than that. That's not a knock on Emeka. I'm pretty sure he won Rookie of the Year against Dwight Howard. And then,
Not against.
not
What?
against the year after. See, I get those messed up.
Oh, it
Regardless,
was against Dwight Howard.
that's right. But, and then the reason I remember that is because my ceiling for him is Dwight Howard. So there's this really big gap between two guys that were very big in the same draft. Wow, shocking, right? But yeah, that was kind of a lazy floor for me, and I do need to be adjusting that probably. All right. It wouldn't be Tyler James Pod with us if it wasn't at least a couple minutes on the Celtics. So before anything about the Nets series, they will probably. Josh, did we look it up? Was it in? We just know it's in the 50s. We don't know the exact number, or is that? Where is it?
Celtics pick, it's like 56 or something
50,
like that.
54,
54,
like
56, something
54.
like that. Yeah.
At the end.
What should they do? And if it's not, I guess if it's not drafted at 54, what should they do? And then realistically, of course, and then just who's somebody that far down the board that would actually be a really smart pick there?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's so late. It's so unpredictable. But I mean, I got a guy that I'm just gonna connect everything with. First off, I was kind of upset they traded the first round pick, even though it's only 25. I was more upset they traded it last year in the Kemba Walker trade because I like when they draft. You know, they miss a lot, but they hit sometimes. So I am going to connect my Carolina.
I knew it.
Guess.
Yes, I knew it. I'm so.
There's a couple reasons. A couple dumb reasons.
I know what he's gonna say, Josh.
Yeah, I don't even have to say it. Do it. There's a couple dumb reasons. There's a couple kind of okay reasons. So Brady Manic. That's who I'm going with. I'm not even sure the dude's going to get drafted.
I knew it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I knew it. I'm so mad at myself for even asking this stupid question.
The funny thing is, when you asked me this question earlier before we got on, I didn't have an answer until right before we recorded, and I was like, "Oh, light bulb. Okay, that's it." So my thing is, he looks like Larry Bird. So the Celtics fans love that. They wanted Adam Morrison that year. You know, thank God that didn't happen. Anybody that looks like Larry Bird, they're gonna go with, and they're gonna have a hard on for us. So that's the dumb reason. The good reason is we could always use more shooting. And why not have a shooter at that position, you know, the 4 or wherever he ends up playing. And I think my biggest worry going in the playoffs was, do we have enough shooting? We have Tatum, so we're good, and everybody else is playing well. But the real reason, or the good reason, is we could use more shooting, and that's his number one skill by far.
Josh, admittingly have not done a deep dive because obviously he's very far down. I'm going to stick to the lottery guys and the 30 guys for now.
Right, and in fairness, that's where the Celtics were. So,
however, I did see a tweet that kind of made me think, and I don't remember who it was. Shout out to whoever it was, but it was like, hey, how many 6'9" guys that can rebound decently well and shoot this well do you get come around the end of the second? Not too many.
Rebound decently. That's
rebounding that can improve. Regardless, shooting and then everything else that he does.
He can shoot.
Well. But my point is, how many guys at 6'9", how many guys at that 6'9" height can shoot that well, who had that big of a run and showed that they can do it against really good defensive teams that y'all played? And it made me really think, like, I don't think he's undrafted. I think he actually might get drafted in that 50 range. I really do. And I'm starting to talk myself into him in that late part of the second. But I don't know. I'm still... There's a lot of guys. I mean, there's 100 and something that ended up getting looked at, and, you know, he could end up.
And the biggest thing is going to be, where's the difference between where he played in college, like with that gap between the college and the NBA skill set? Like, can he make that leap, or is he just a really good college player because he wasn't playing the most? I mean, he was playing athletic people, but not like the most athletic people in the world, you know, every night as you will in the NBA. So that'll be the question for sure. But I had to pick him just because of that range for sure.
Yeah.
Where the Celtics were at, and it was just an easy pick. It was a layup.
All right. 30 seconds on anything about this series, because they're obviously up 2-0 on the Nets as we're recording this, and then go ahead and keep it quick. Go ahead and put your shameless plug together at the end as well.
I mean, I won't even plug much. Like I just am. It's one. You know, when teams win I don't even want to say too much, but you know, when teams win a championship, a lot of times everything has to go right, and things just feel like they're going right for that season. That's what it feels like so far in only 2 games. I know it's only 2 games, but the Nets are pretty damn good. I've never seen Kevin Durant defended like he's being defended right now. I've never seen him had 2 bad games in a row like he's had in a row. And I just think you don't have off nights with defense, and they very often. So the way they play, it just seems like they're the real deal this year, and it seems like everything's going right so far. It's a long playoffs, don't get me wrong. And when they play real teams that aren't in shambles because of Kyrie, that may make a difference. That may make a difference, you know. And I'm not even gonna get started on Kyrie because I only have 30 seconds, but I just feel like everything's going right now, and it could be one of those years to where they're gonna at least be in the finals, I think. So we'll see.
I'll say this: you are locking down literally probably one of the best scorers in NBA history, and Kevin Durant. I think he's top 3 scorer all time, and you don't even have Robert Williams. That's the part that's
exactly.
Me. And
He looked terrible last night.
For what it's worth, if you don't listen to our show, Josh picked the Celtics going into the playoffs to make the finals.
Thank you.
Yeah, I picked him to win the East. I wasn't happy about it, but I picked him to win the East.
It's gonna be. I think Philly's underrated. I think the Bucks are good too, but I think it's the East is gonna be whoever comes out. Yeah, I think whoever comes out of the East is gonna win. I think the East is stronger, obviously.
All right, man.
The East is stronger.
Anything else before we get out of here?
No, not at all. I appreciate you having me on, and hopefully maybe in the future once the playoffs are done and the lottery happens, we get we know the set order. We can come back and talk some even more deep dive or draft talk.
All right. I believe it's at Tyler James NBA, Celtic Social. Anywhere else I'm forgetting?
That's the main ones. That's the main ones.
Well, this has been fun. Episode of Draft Chat. I'm Trevor.
I'm Josh. And we'll see you soon.